Following breaking news out of New York City as police are searching for a gunman.
He ignores numerous other pedestrians, approaches the victim from behind, and shoots him in the back.
This is the moment that the first shot is fired into his back.
It seems to be someone who would have been lying in wait, so they could have been in just regular clothes. They might be an assassin. Who knows?
Obviously, it was intentional, it was premeditated, it was planned.
The manhunt continues this morning for an assassin who shot and killed a CEO on the streets of Manhattan. We've got new information about a possible message. And get this, it was engraved on the shell casings. Was this a paid professional hit? Our panel of New York investigators weighs in. Also, out of the Big Apple, what could be holding up the jury in the Subway Chokehold Trial? That is what's trending today in true crime. And we're spotlighting the case of a Colorado dentist accused of poisoning his wife with protein shakes and then targeting a detective allegedly from behind bars. Those are the allegations. We'll dive into the story. Plus, our biggest week of sentencing continues as we're counting down to the burn pile murder case of Melody Ferris. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you. Welcome to Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some court? Let's get it going. Go ahead and grab that cup of coffee right now. It is time for my opening statement. Off to prison goes mean mama Melody. That's right. Melody Ferris will be learning her sentence today for murdering her husband, Gary, and for burning his body on their family fire pit. I started calling her Mean Mama Melody as soon as she started blaming her kids for her crimes. That's a mean mama, if you ask me. Now she's looking at being locked up for the rest of her life. That is Melody Ferris's reality. But my friends, that is not the reality that I want to focus on this morning. I want to focus on the victims in the case. Gary Ferris, his children, and his grandchildren. Life for them changed in the worst way when their beloved father and grandfather was taken away from them in such a cruel and heartless way. And for Gary's clients, they lost their attorney. He was a very well-respected legal advocate in the Atlanta legal community. And my heart goes out to all of the victims who loved Gary. Gary Ferris was a family man, and we saw this during the trial. We saw it playing out, how his death tore his children apart. And Mean Mama Melody caused them even more trauma by putting them through that public trial. So as this case comes to a close, may Gary Ferris rest in peace. And may he be remembered for all of the good that he did while he was on this earth. The good that he did for his family and the good that he did for his clients. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Have you previously in any other criminal proceeding been referred for a competency determination?
Just say yes.
Yes, previously.
Oh, in Arizona, we've got Lori Vallow back in court today. She's got what's called a Rule 11 hearing. This is a hearing all about her competency. Is she going to be competent to stand trial in Arizona? That hearing starts up at 10:30 a.m. and we will be there. Now, in Mississippi, we've got the missing student murder trial of Sheldon Harrington. That one continues this morning. You may have seen some of it yesterday. 10 a.m. Eastern is the time for it to resume. And we've got the convicted killer I was just talking about, Melody Ferris, being sentenced today at 9 a.m. Eastern. We will take you into her Georgia courtroom live once it gets underway. Now, to our top story, though, this morning, as a manhunt is underway for a gunman who shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Now, this killing was done in broad daylight in Midtown Manhattan on Wednesday, and we have some brand new details this morning as police sources are saying that the assassin, get this, might have left messages on the bullets that were used in the shooting. The NYPD investigating the possible message, which appears to include the words deny, depose, and defend, engraved on the cartridge casings. Let that sink in. Deny, depose, defend, engraved on those rounds that were fired at that CEO. Now, police say they recovered 3 live 9mm rounds and 3 spent cartridge casings. Alex Miller from Scripps News has the very latest on the search.
Julie, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was gunned down early Wednesday morning as he appeared to head to an investors conference at the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Police are calling it a brazen, targeted attack. Late Wednesday afternoon, police released these photos of the suspect, taken on security camera just before the shooting. Newly minted New York City Police Department Commissioner Jessica Tisch said the suspect arrived masked and on foot. He allowed other passerbys to continue on before Thompson arrived.
It appears the suspect was lying in wait for several minutes. And as the victim was walking to the conference hotel, the suspect approached from behind and fired several rounds, striking the victim at least once in the back and at least once in the right calf.
According to footage reviewed by the NYPD, the gun appears to jam, and then the shooter quickly fixes it and continues firing at Thompson. He then flees on foot into an alley, then via e-bike into Central Park, just 5 blocks away. Police told reporters they searched Thompson's hotel room and are interviewing coworkers and family members about potential enemies. His wife told NBC News that he had been the target of threats. The security video had no audio, so police were not able to discern if any words were exchanged during this attack. There was one witness present. The NYPD says they are interviewing that person. In Midtown Manhattan, Alex Miller. Julie, back to you.
Our thanks to Alex Miller for that report this morning. Now, I have 2 very special guests I want to bring in. Both of them have patrolled the streets of New York City as part of their illustrious careers. Here with us, Mike Alcazar and Manuel Gomez. Manuel, let me begin with you, if I may, please. Have you ever, throughout the course of your career, seen messages etched into rounds?
Actuality, unfortunately, I have. I've seen that in Afghanistan.
I said to my colleagues, if anyone has seen it, it's probably you. Honest to goodness. Wow.
I saw it done to the Ambassador Cunningham in Afghanistan back in 2012. So this is not the first time. But again, the weapon proficiency of this guy was shown that, yes, he was proficient in using a gun, but no, he didn't take the proper steps to adjust the gun to deal with the suppression device that was on it. So when you put a silencer on a gun, that reduces the recoil of the sliding back to grab the next round. This is why what he had was a stovepipe, is when the bullet is up, sticking up out of the gun, and then he had to remove it by cycling back. Tells me that this guy is not a weapons expert, because he would have tested the ammunition before using a silencer. So it tells me that the gun was using subsonic rounds, which was very smart on his part, because that type of bullet has a lower sound ratio. So when you shoot the gun with the suppressor, it just goes like almost like a blow of air. And it shows me that this guy, even though proficient, wasn't a weapon expert, but clearly he is a trained killer.
This is really helpful insight from you. That's one of our biggest questions this morning. We keep talking about in our newsroom, was this a professional hit job? And so you would say a trained killer, but not a pro. Would that be a fair way to characterize it, Manuel?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, I appreciate it. Detective Alcazar, I want to ask you some questions. Let's start with a clip from the NYPD Chief of Detectives, Joseph Kenny, speaking to the public about this attack.
The motive for this murder currently is unknown, but based on the evidence we have so far, it does appear that the victim was specifically targeted. But at this point, we do not know why. This does not appear to be a random act of violence.
Okay, so pretty clear this was a targeted attack. The engravings on those casings, really stunning stuff. Detective Alcazar, I want to start with the idea that this happened early in the morning, 6:45 a.m., outside of the Hilton Hotel, a bustling area, lots of tourists, especially this time of year. Are you surprised that law enforcement doesn't have anybody in custody this morning?
Yeah, I mean, it's a dense society. This guy, like a fast bandit, hopped on an e-bike and he was gone in the wind. It's a daunting task. Our investigators are combing through all kinds of video surveillance right now, trying to track him. So, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they've already identified the suspect through the photographs and the Crime Stopper tips. So, again, I wouldn't be surprised if they're already on the hunt for him. They might have a suspect identified. They've not released that information yet. They're keeping their cards close to the vest, and they're releasing information that they want to the media to help with the case. So I'm confident they'll catch him very soon.
That's helpful insight as well, Manuel, that police, little reminder, are always several steps ahead of what they will let the general public know. And that's the way it should be. We've got to keep everybody safe. I want to show everyone what we know so far about the suspect, just a few details that officials have released. So they say that this guy was waiting for Brian Thompson, that it was very clear he was, as we say in criminal law, lying in wait to do this kill. We know that he's a light-skinned man, had a gray backpack on his back. You see it very clearly when he's raising the gun and aiming at Brian Thompson. And police say they're still investigating a motive. Manuel Gomez, tell me what you thought when you heard this news break that this attack happened broad daylight on these busy streets.
Well, right, the fact that he was sitting waiting in the Starbucks and the coffee shop waiting for him at a certain time proves to me unequivocally that somebody at the CEO's job gave his itinerary to the shooter. Now, if I was a detective in this case, okay, I would be investigating the employees at the job and also their phone calls, because most of these companies record all the conversations. So the fact that you knew exactly what time he was going to be there, that itinerary would only be given by his assistant or by someone at the job that knew that that event was going to occur that day. So that tells me somebody in the company is providing this information to this killer, because he just didn't sit there randomly and, you know, say, well, you know what, let me take potluck. No, he was told exactly when, and that only came from that CEO's job.
Oh, that's good. This is really good, Manuel. Let's keep going. Detective Alcazar, who else are you looking to talk to get information about this?
Well, now that we found the etchings on the shell casings, I would comb through his correspondence, letters, email correspondence, anybody that was probably upset about a denial of claim. It seems like this guy has a vendetta. He wanted to leave these shell casings, so that's a big clue right there. So this didn't just happen, right? This guy, this individual sounds like he's upset, he's frustrated, so there could be a lot of like electronic history mapping out what led to this. So I would definitely talk to coworkers. His wife mentioned somebody being upset about a denial of a claim, possibly disgruntled employees, like Manuel said. So there's a lot to go through. It's a puzzle pieces. We're all putting it together to hopefully identify this perpetrator.
Right, Detective. Thank you for that. United Healthcare Group issued a statement saying we're deeply saddened and shocked at the passing of our dear friend and colleague, Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. We're working closely with the New York Police Department and asking for your patience and understanding during this difficult time. Our hearts go out to Brian's family and all who were close to him. The CEO for 3 years, he was 50 years old and had been with the company since 2004. Manuel, let me go back to you. I want to ask you about the gun used here. I'm curious, in a case like this, would you be thinking that the guy is going to try to ditch that weapon? What would the search be looking like if you're going after this guy who you know is in the wind this morning, but might he have left a weapon behind?
That's the perfect spot to go to. When he went to Central Park, first of all, taking an e-bike was the most smartest thing you could do in a situation like this, because you can navigate in and out the streets very quickly when a car cannot if he was being chased. Second, he chose to go into Central Park, which has numerous sewer locations where you could drop, dismantle that gun, throw it in a lake, throw it in one, drop it in one of the sewer holes. And this case also highlights one of the vulnerabilities that New York has, that it has not corrected since 9/11. and that is that we have a poor CTT camera system. We have a camera system in our streets that is outdated between 15 to 20 years. We do not have cameras showing the safety of the public with 4K or 5K technology. The only cameras we have doing that now are the speeding light cameras that catch you when you go to a 25-mile-an-hour zone going 50 miles and it catches your license plate. It's unfortunate that we don't have that technology that Israel uses, that London uses, that Spain uses. This case highlights the reason why we have to have that technology in New York.
This is awesome analysis from you both, as always. Detective Alcazar, take us home here. Go into professor mode, if you will. What are you thinking when you see that language etched on those cartridge casings? Deny, depose, and defend.
Yeah, big clue right there, right? I think he took it from a book. Somebody wrote that they might have taken this from an insurance book. So to me, as an investigator, I would look again. Anybody got denied claims, right? Anybody that's defending lawsuits, right? Perhaps the insurance company has a pending lawsuit. And then to depose, I would think it's his final action that he wanted to remove somebody from authority. So it speaks volumes. You know, I'm hoping that the public will help identify this guy, right? Because of his unique backpack that's like $300, his jacket that looks expensive. This guy's a gear guy. His suppressor on the weapon. So I don't think he I don't think he bought this just for this assassination. This is something he wears every day, and hopefully somebody can help identify him. When they call Crime Stoppers, they'll see, you know, people motivated by money, reward. They're going to recognize his gear and call in a Crime Stopper tips if they haven't already. So that's all good information right there.
I could talk to you both all day. This is awesome analysis. Thank you both so much. And fortunately for us, you're staying with us for another segment. Mike Alcazar, Manuel Gomez, thank you much. Coming up next for you here on Opening Statements. Jurors are weighing the key pieces of evidence in the Subway Chokehold case. The jury's still out as we say what could be the holdup, and will they ever arrive at a verdict? Plus, we're shining a spotlight on a Colorado dentist accused of poisoning his wife. But he doesn't stop there. Now he's accused of plotting to kill a detective on his case. We'll deep dive together when we return.
Tonight on Court TV.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case. It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan. Tonight at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Now for what's trending in true crime, jurors in the Subway Chokehold case are resuming deliberations this morning after still not being able to arrive at a verdict. Daniel Penny is accused of killing 30-year-old Jordan Neely after putting him in a chokehold on a crowded New York subway. Neely, at the time, was suffering from schizophrenia and was high on drugs and was shouting death threats at passengers, and that is when Penny intervened. Now, on Wednesday, the jury asked to see 3 different pieces of evidence again. They wanted to see the Vasquez video, it's called, which shows what happened on the train that day, the full video they wanted to see. They also wanted to see a compilation of police body camera videos, as well as video of Daniel Penny's NYPD interrogation. What do you think about those pieces of evidence that they wanted to revisit? What might they be stuck on? Here to discuss, let's bring in our power panel. Retired NYPD detective and Professor Mike Alcazar, criminal defense attorney and civil attorney John Phillips, and attorney and former homicide prosecutor Randolph Rice. It's great to see you all this morning. Ooh, let's read the tea leaves a bit. Randolph Rice, would you start us off, please? What are you thinking?
I love if I'm Daniel Penny's defense team. I think this is a great sign that they're asking these questions. They're looking at more evidence, or they're looking at the evidence again to determine if he was justified in his actions. And I think they've also got questions about, did he actually cause the death? Remember, that was one of the big issues that was raised, was the actions of Daniel Penny the cause of the death, or were there other factors like the substances that were in his system at the time?
Right, great points. John Phillips, let me go to you next. Where's your attorney mind going as you hear these questions from the jury to see those pieces of evidence again?
A lot of things. So there's certainly the comorbidities, whether the drugs had an effect on the death. And I think the doctor said that even if there was like a reference to an elephant, had enough to put down an elephant, that they wouldn't have caused his death, that it was the chokehold. I think that was an overstatement, but we're dealing with the issue of kind of the polarization of jurors in this society, where some are kind of the reptile that want to protect, themselves and fear this kind of attack, and then others address homelessness and houselessness and the mentally ill, and want to, maybe not use so much force as you can. So it's a conflict.
Right. You're all making great points. Detective Mike Alcazar, last but certainly not least here, what are you thinking, please?
Well, as a New Yorker, I put myself in that situation. I'm sure many of the jurors do also, because they've ridden the subways, they've seen homeless people, they've seen the mentally ill doing crazy things on the subway. So maybe they're reviewing all the information to see, as your previous guest said, that maybe there is some kind of justification. Maybe he took action because maybe there was the lack of police presence, which is a failure on the New York City administration. So these are the things that came up in my head as a New Yorker.
Right, and appreciate that context, Detective. It's scary on the New York subways, isn't it? It can be really, really scary stuff, and so that context is key. And fortunately, this jury, I'm sure, will be very familiar with the subways and the encounters that can happen on a daily basis in a big city like that. Let's turn to another aspect of this case. We know that Jordan Neely's family has also just filed a civil lawsuit against Daniel Penny, accusing him of negligent contact, assault and battery, causing injuries that ultimately led to his death. Let's take a listen to how Daniel Penny recalls the incident.
We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him.
So we're asking this next question. Even if Penny is acquitted, I'm just saying this just for the sake of our analysis today, let's just say this is an acquittal. Is this criminal trial perhaps just the first hurdle for Daniel Penny in the world of his legal problems? John Phillips, let me start with you on this, please.
Julie, I do this every week. So I think three out of the last 5 weeks, I've been in the criminal trial where I was filing a civil lawsuit. And, justice is spelled one way, but it's defined by criminal justice and civil justice, and sometimes the court of public opinion and legal change. And so I do suspect that there will be, more of this story to be told under an entirely different standard, because they would just have to prove the preponderance, just a tiny little bit more of the evidence that there was a wrongful death or assault or what the core issue is.
This is really helpful, John. This is a teachable moment, really, for everyone who wonders about this type of thing where two different legal actions can result from the same incident, and the disposition of the criminal case often dictates what happens next in the civil case. Randolph Rice, would you take it from here? Let's say the opposite happens. Let's say it's a conviction for Daniel Penny. What might the civil situation look like then?
Yeah, I think the civil situation really takes a back seat to this. But I got to tell you, if I was the family of the victim here, I would have held off. I don't typically like to advise clients to file civil suits while criminal proceedings are going on. I think that can often taint the situation. Now, you know, the jurors are not supposed to take into consideration factors outside of what evidence they've been presented. But let's say they get a whiff of that their family is seeking some sort of monetary, may sway them to say, wait a second, is this just a money grab? And is the prosecutor sort of in the same boat as that we're sort of overreaching here? So I don't like when they do that. Look, he gets criminal conviction. At the end of the day, what's a civil judgment against him, a money judgment against him really going to matter?
Appreciate it, Randolph. Mike Alcazar, final quick thoughts on this case in New York City. Does it have everybody talking? Is this one that people have really just seemed to be taking opposing positions, and there's a lot of polarization with it?
Oh, yeah, this case is definitely polarizing. All my friends and New Yorkers are talking about this daily because it's something that we experience, you know, going to work, riding the subway. So it's an issue of like safety and protecting ourselves and police presence. So that's why I think the jury is kind of like taking their time trying to figure this out, because they want what's best for the case. They want what's best for the family. They want what's best for the defendant and what's best for New York. So it's definitely a very challenging case to decide.
Right. I love how you said that, what's best for New York, because really this is going to set the tone for what happens going forward. People could be afraid to intervene for fear of a criminal case or a civil lawsuit coming at them. We've got to leave it there for now, but great discussion with you all. We've got to say goodbye, and thank you to Detective Mike Alcazar for everything this morning. Thank you for your time and expertise. Still to come here on Opening Statements, we've got a Colorado dentist accused of murdering his wife by poisoning her protein shakes. And guess what? This guy is back in the spotlight for allegedly plotting another murder. We'll explain. And our biggest week of sentencing continues this morning. All female defendants, too. Just about 30 minutes from now, convicted killer Melody Ferris will be back in court to learn her fate.
Approach to dentistry begins with sincerely listening to the patient and wanting to find out more about where they're coming from and what they're looking for and what they want. The most satisfying thing about my job is when a patient leaves and they say, wow, that was a lot easier than I expected it to be. I love to make dentistry easy for people.
James Craig went from smiling and promoting his dental practice to facing murder charges. He's accused of killing his wife by poisoning her protein shakes. The father of 6 has pleaded not guilty to killing his wife of 2 decades. Prosecutors claim the dentist searched online for ways to poison his wife in a way that would appear to be accidental. Angela Craig died back in March of 2023 of poisoning from a substance that's found in over-the-counter eye drops. This is according to the medical examiner who performed her autopsy. Now, there are also allegations of multiple affairs for the dentist as well. Scripps News Denver has more on the case.
In court documents, prosecutors say the most damning evidence against the Aurora dentist accused of poisoning his wife's protein shakes comes from one of his mistresses. James Craig faces a first-degree murder charge and charges of tampering with physical evidence related to the death of his wife, Angela, in March of 2023. Prosecutors claim evidence from a mistress show Craig wanted to kill his wife long before her death. For instance, voice messages allegedly between Craig and the mistress say things like, "Do you know anyone who can help me with my problem down here? I can pay handsomely. I want to be with you." And hitting up a homeless person actually sounds like the only choice right now. Craig's defense attorneys argue this evidence should not be admitted at trial, saying it would violate their client's due process rights and that the witness was coerced into making statements against their clients. More than that, the defense wants all of the charges against Craig dropped, saying there's been outrageous government conduct in the case. Prosecutors say the witness spoke with investigators voluntarily and are requesting the judge deny the defense's motion without a hearing.
Oh my, there's so much more to discuss here. I've got 2 great guests to help me do that. Still with me, attorney John Phillips and private investigator and retired Army intelligence officer Manuel Gomez. Whew. All right. when I first heard about this, I kept thinking, oh, we've seen an eye drops murder case before. We saw a trial playing out here on court TV. So let's start first with the allegations of the murder and the way in which it was done. Manuel Gomez, let me start with you. As an investigator, talk to us a little bit about what goes into cracking a case such as this one, where you got the smiling dentist and nothing appears on the surface to be wrong.
Well, you know, one of the things I want to highlight in the beginning is that there was a failure of the hospital. This lady went numerous times, and yeah, granted, potassium cyanide is the chemical that can barely be detected, but arsenic is one that does get detected, and even in small doses. And the fact that she went over several times to the hospital and no one detected this, I mean, it's just a travesty of the medical practice that this woman died because they failed to identify this chemical. And it's sad in this case because this has happened in numerous cases throughout the past 10 years. I've seen at least 20 of them, and that, you know, people are going, trying to get help, and, you know, doctors like this take advantage of their skills.
This is really great insight, Manuel. And let's take it a step further. John Phillips, let me tap into your legal expertise. Could there be grounds for a civil lawsuit against the hospital, perhaps?
You know, I hadn't thought of that, and I agree. You know, medical malpractice and kind of what the standard of care is, you know, they're difficult cases. But certainly, if there was something that reasonably should have been protected with the course of tests that she was undergoing, you know, that could lead to a medical malpractice or medical negligence type of lawsuit. But it's a bit of a stretch, right? Because they're not, unless there's signs of abuse, they're not exactly looking for abuse. This is a wild one, Julie, and one would think with him being a dentist and some level of a high-profile dentist, that eye drops wouldn't have been his weapon of choice, right?
Great point. Great point. Yeah.
He had access to other things.
Right. It's a really good point. John Phillips, okay, would you use that in your defense? Let's say you're defending this guy.
I mean, you throw whatever you can at the wall. You know, hey, murder for hire, I represent Joe Exotic. So I've seen government misconduct. Like, we have a motion for new trial pending before the appellate court where there was significant government misconduct. But just because you get caught doesn't mean it's government misconduct. And so they're already kind of showing that their defense strategy is a little bit desperate. But you know, you do whatever you can when you're trying to, you know, save a man from a life in prison.
Sure. No, appreciate that, John. Let's take a look together at some of the digital evidence that the investigators collected against Dr. James Craig. They really dug into the search history. According to the affidavit, a detective found this after accessing his Google account. Quote, beginning on February 27, 2023, we observed that the user had conducted searches related to poison. Those searches included how many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human, and is arsenic detectable in autopsy? Later in the affidavit, there's some more interesting stuff. Look at this. The search history provided YouTube searches for top 5 undetectable poisons that show no signs of foul play, how to make poison, and the top 10 deadliest plants. They can kill you. Oh, Manuel Gomez sounds like a smart guy doing some research, but not smart enough, apparently. The cops are smarter. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you know, when I see this case, it also brings me back to the Walsh case. Because, you know, in the Walsh case, what do? The guy was looking up online what to do to, how to bury a woman, how to cleaning products used, and so forth. And in this case, he does exactly the same thing. He goes online, and this is the damning evidence that I know is going to find him guilty, and showing what type of poisons, how to kill my wife. And this is something that I'm seeing, unfortunately, to be in a pattern with a lot of these sophisticated killers. They're using the internet, and that is their downfall. And I think this is one of the reasons why his attorney left. His attorney left because there was a conflict of interest. He knows his client is guilty, and he knows his client is continuously doing things to violate the attorney-client privilege. And this case is just, a travesty that, we have a guy like this doing this to such a decent person. And unfortunately, you know what? He killed her. But the damning evidence that's going to be his downfall is that computer. There is no doubt, just like in the Walsh case.
I appreciate the comparison. Thank you, Manuel. So James Craig's legal problems don't stop there with homicide case. Apparently, just last week, he picked up more charges. He picked up, I believe, prosecutors filed 2 new charges against him: solicitation to commit murder and solicitation to commit perjury. John Phillips, I know you're cringing here. Officials say that he was orchestrating the murder of one of the detectives on the case. They allege that he was doing this from his jail cell as he's awaiting the homicide case involving his wife. How does that exacerbate the situation for you as an attorney if you're representing this guy?
That's probably why his attorney withdrew. Once you have one problem, okay, let's try to get you out of that problem. Oh, you're going to now try to do a hit on the guys that we need as witnesses, and you're going to destroy my case and my ability to operate under the rules of professional, and put me in ultimate conflicts where I'm almost in the position of being a co-conspirator to not just 1 murder for hire, but now 2 or 3, and it's terrible. And when you have a client like that, the only thing professionals do is withdraw. But on the same token, he has a right to counsel under the U.S. Constitution. So somebody's going to have to pick this up. Probably a public defender, depending upon. I guess he has assets. They'll probably, keep trying to hire somebody. But it's crazy, This doesn't reek of, again, I've dealt with government conspiracy cases where they're just throwing stuff at the wall over and over. This just sounds like a kind of a guy that's just in over his head, and he keeps putting sand on top.
Mm-hmm. Right. He was having affairs is the allegation. So get a divorce. You want to go running around and be single? Divorce your spouse,
6
right?
kids.
Much easier.
6 kids, too.
6 kids. Terrible. I know. We feel so bad for the children always. This is just horrible. We've got to leave it there for now, but we'll continue talking about this case. Great insight from you both. John and Manuel, thank you. Kindly stand by, please. Still ahead, we're counting down to Melody Ferris's sentencing. This is expected to start up in just 15 minutes. Will the family drama tip the scales of justice?
Coming soon to Court TV.
It's the biggest story that we're covering.
He is the boogeyman.
Lori Daybell.
She said, I will have you destroyed.
She's got another murder trial coming up.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
We will not stop fighting. We have no quit.
Sean Diddy Combs arrested on a federal indictment.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon. Only on Court TV.
The sentencing of burn pile murder defendant Melody Ferris is moments away. We're going to take you inside that Georgia courtroom in our next hour as victim impact statements from the defendant's children could be what tips the scales of justice as to how much prison time she gets.
I went back down to the burn pile and I took a close look at the burn pile. And I looked and I was like, wow. And then I saw what looked to me to be like a hand, like bones of a hand, like that. And that's when I just, I think I went in shock.
When he got there and started looking around and they couldn't find him, he was frantic. And when he called me about them after they had found him, essentially, it was just devastation in his voice.
And what about your sister, Amanda? How did she sound?
She was crying. She was crying. We were all extremely devastated.
And he goes, Amanda,
like something to the tune of like, Daddy's in this burn pile. Like, I know what I've seen. I've been in Iraq. I know what burned bodies looked like. And I'm just sitting there on the phone going, what are you talking about? And he was like, there's something in this burn pile. He came over and grabbed me by the arm as hard as he could, and he got in my face.
Who are we talking about?
Scott.
Okay.
He got in my face and he screamed at me. He said, I know what I saw. I know what it is, Amanda. I think a lot of things that have happened in our family get swept under the rug, and they're never addressed. And they're not taken seriously. But a sin is a sin. And I feel like this is a repercussion of all the sins that were committed over years.
I was informed that they discovered a bullet lodged in the rib bone. I went into kind of shock, I'll say.
At that point, did you suspect your mom?
Definitely.
All right, let's talk about this. What do you think the court may give Melody Ferris, and why? I mean, really the question is, should she get parole? It's going to be a life sentence for her. That's what the law dictates in Georgia. But the question is, should it be life with the possibility of parole after so many years, or strictly life? Let's bring back in private investigator, former NYPD officer and retired Army intelligence officer Manuel Gomez, and attorney Randolph Rice, a former prosecutor he was as well. Okay, where might the judge go here and why? Randolph, would you start us off, please?
I think she gets the maximum penalty, and at 64 years old, I think she dies in prison. I know that seems simple answer, but that's it. I don't think anybody can come into that courtroom today and say anything that's going to sway this judge away from what he's going to do to her today based on the facts, the evidence, and just the behavior after the finding of the body, of how she acted, the cold nature. Even during the trial, you and I talked about it during the trial. She just is, she's cold. She's sitting there with her pearls on and she has no emotion. And blaming one of her sons for this whole thing, I think she gets the maximum. I don't think she ever sees the light of day, and she stays in jail.
Randolph, I agree with everything you just said. I'm with you. Is there any reason to show mercy? Just even trying to look at this from that perspective. Manuel Gomez, can you see any reason?
No, I don't see any reason. I mean, this was a classic case of gunning my husband for the financial assets. If you look at that estate and what they had, that's the main reason why, in my professional opinion, she killed her husband. And the fact that she was so evil and despicable and epitomizes evilness to turn his body and burn it on the property, she's not going to get parole. I predict this judge will just give her, like my colleague said, a life sentence. And if she gets 25 to life, she'll be 90 years old if she makes it, which I doubt. Again, she should get no justice other than the justice she's receiving. She should get no mercy. I take that back. No mercy, because this case was just pure evilness.
Preach, Manuel, preach. I'm with you. I know we're going to have to let you go in a couple of minutes. Randolph's going to stay with us as we start the live coverage of her sentencing. So, Manuel, tell me, what did you think about the fact that she blamed her kids, in particular her son, Scott?
Well, that was a Hail Mary reach for her to try to have some type of defense, some type of appeal, because she's going to set an appeal in this case. There's no doubt in my mind. She has the money to do it. She'll find some lawyer that's willing to take on that appeal. And blaming it on her son was the only option, all right, because the evidence is overwhelming against her. And that, like I said, was just a reach on her part.
I'm with you. I call her Mean Mama Melody after I saw that defense. There goes that relationship. The holidays not going to be good for this family, and she had so much to do with that trauma they went through in her trial. We'll leave it here for just a moment as we hit our break. Manuel Gomez, big thank you to you for all of your insight and expertise, and we're going to pick up the conversation. Randolph Rice is coming with us. Please do the same. That's all for opening statements. If you like the episode, watch it again, share it. Go to courttv.com to do that.